moderator for this panel, which is on mobile commerce, is Shruti Gandhi. Shruti is an engineer, an entrepreneur, who for a change decided to take the plunge on the other side and became a venture investor with Samsung. So at Samsung, Shruti focuses on investment in a broad array of things around mobile, from consumer applications to digital education. So let me invite Shruti so we can get this panel going. Shruti?
Hi, everyone. I'll just welcome all the panelists on the stage. We have Michael Polson from eBay. We have Bill Gaida, did I say that right?
Yep.
From Visa. We have Ryan Floyd from Storm Ventures. Christy William from Bloomreach.
Christy Augustine.
Oh, Augustine, I'm so sorry. I would like to start with a brief intro from all of you. Please spend about 20 to 30 seconds talking about your backgrounds and how you got here. People in the audience already have the bio. I'm hoping you've read more about it already on the website. But just take some time and introduce yourself in the context of mobile commerce.
Hi, Christy Augustine. I work at Bloomreach. I'm our head of mobile, so I oversee product management, engineering, marketing for our mobile product. I've been with Bloomreach for 2 years in a variety of different roles before we started mobile. Before that, I was a strategy consultant with Bain & Company, and before that, I was a computer programmer. I spent almost a decade working on computer programs before the dot-com boom with Hewlett-Packard, and then during the dot-com boom with Walmart.com.
Hi everybody, my name is Ryan Floyd. Love Thai. Was involved with TaiCon last year and continue to love these events. I'm an early stage venture investor, focused on mobile, cloud, and SaaS, but mobile is a big part of our portfolio. John Drury from Averail that was up earlier is a company that's pretty representative of what we do. I started Storm 13 years ago, so I've seen quite a lot over the course of the last decade plus. But today it's really mobile, cloud, and SaaS. Those are the three things we do.
Bill Gatta, head of strategic partnerships for Visa, and that's our relationships with all non-financial institutions, including the mobile network operators, device manufacturers, platform providers. I just started that job 3 months ago. Before that, for 3 years, I was a head of mobile for Visa. And before that, I spent 15 years in the mobile industry with the GSMA in London, with Ericsson in Stockholm, and with 2 mobile operators, TELUS and Bell, in Canada. So originally mobile background.
Hi, I'm Michael Paulson. I spent about the last 3 years as a VP of product at a Seattle-based shopping startup called Decide.com. And back in September at eBay, acquired a company, and I'm now head of product for a new group called Seller Insights. So our role is to use science to help all the sellers on eBay optimize, manage, and grow their businesses. I've been doing retail and e-commerce stuff for almost 20 years. I was at, before Decide, I was at Microsoft for about 5 years running their online shopping businesses. I was at Amazon Marketplace when they were growing that platform. Also worked at Gap and Toys R Us as well.
Thank you so much, everyone. Such great backgrounds, but this topic is pretty big, as we all know. And I want to start big, and then maybe we'll try to identify some specific areas in this topic to dive into. But I want to take another 20, 25 seconds, each of you. Tell me what mobile commerce means to you. With you as eBay, Visa, as an investor and at Bloomreach, when you think of mobile commerce, there's definitely great opportunity here. Like Black Friday numbers are amazing, right? Walmart declared something like 400 million online views, out of which 53% was from mobile. That's some great numbers out here. So when you think of mobile, what do you think it is, mobile commerce-wise? And then I'll break that question down to also, when you think of mobile commerce, like by 2015, 2 years down, not 5 years down the road, what does it mean to you?
Great. So I think the big story in mobile commerce is that more than 90% of retail sales in the U.S. still happen in physical stores, and the big opportunity is really mobile influenced commerce. So if you look at the forecast for 2016, is that mobile influenced commerce is going to be about $700 billion. which is about twice all of e-commerce and about 20 times the projection for m-commerce. So I think that the real story here, and especially for companies looking to work on this problem, is to help retailers drive customers to their store and improve the in-store experience in a physical store, which is actually still pretty bad.
If you think about Visa, our success is predicated on kind of two factors: the number of accounts, think about cards we have in market, and the number of places you can use them. And today that's about 38 million places around the world. We've got about 2 billion cards around the world. The two things that I think about are what's happening with mobile point of sale. Think Square times 200, because that's how many Square-like companies we look at now around the world. They're going to double the number of places you can use a Visa account, from 38 million to more than probably 80 million in the next 5 years. So double the number of nodes. The other thing that I think about is what's happening in emerging markets, where people are using their mobile phone to make electronic payments for the first time, the unbanked and underbanked. There's markets where they may never have a plastic card, but it'll be their first electronic account, what we call a Visa Mobile Prepaid account. And that's probably going to be 300 to 500 million additional accounts in the next 5 to 7 years. So I think about mobile enabling the next billion accounts, and mobile enabling the next 40 million places to use them.
Yeah, maybe just to start with saying something it's not. So I don't want to see another mobile payment system, and Bill will probably agree with me on this. Visa and the payment systems that exist have done a great job. So I don't think, for me, mobile commerce is the next payment system. Accepting payments is great, making it easy, less friction, that's great. What I think it is going forward, really, it's everything about the web, but better and bigger. Because everything you can do on the web, you can do on a mobile device, plus it's something you carry with you, it's much more personalized. It just, so whether it's the enhanced buying experience or actually transacting, mobile's just gonna redefine everything.
I totally agree. On personalization, plus we do not need another mobile payments. We think about it 3 different ways. One is discovery just got incredibly harder. Before I had the store, I'd go in the store, maybe it was difficult to find, but there's a department I could go to. Then I had the desktop. Now I have the desktop and a tablet and a mobile phone, and on each of them I have tablets and sites. So if I found something that I really liked on the mobile site, now I need to try to find it on the desktop or on the app or in some other environment. So discovery just got a lot harder. Payments, I think, is another big portion of it, but I think some very smart folks are gonna figure that one out. So it's not one we spend as much time on. And the third one really is around personalization. So this whole notion of the mobile device is, it's my device. It's all about me. It's the only device I sleep with. I wake up to first thing in the morning. Sadly, I sneak and check my email while my kids are asking for breakfast, right? Like, it is the most personal device you have, and so personalization has been talked about a lot on the desktop. I think mobile is going to give us so much more context to make the experience more personalized, not just on the mobile phone, but on the desktop and in the store, as we talked about mobile influence being a huge portion of what's occurring in mobile commerce.
So when you said not another personalization company, what do you mean then? Because you were asking for personalization right here.
Yeah, so personalization's been focused on the desktop, but I don't think it's gotten as much prominence as the mobile phone is going to force. And so there's just so much more context I can have about a user, where they are, what they're interested in, their geo, that I can tie to other places. And I think the people who figure out how to tie all of that from mobile to desktop to in-store are the people who are gonna help with discovery and personalization in the long term.
And then I wanted to ask a couple of you, Brian, and maybe you again, Christy, what is it possible, what's possible already today? A lot of entrepreneurs in the room thinking of great new ideas, but I think often as non-industry experts, we start from scratch, thinking of a problem in mind and then coming up with a solution, but we don't often recognize what's already possible, what tools are already available today to start a company. So, if you guys have any companies or enabling technologies from your own company that you can leverage to build something even better, what would that be?
Well, I'll just give just quick an example. So we have a company called Sellfire, and all Sellfire does is deliver digital coupons from CPGs. So if you have a store, whether it's brick and mortar or it's an e-tailer, and you want to basically capture coupons, trying to go build a relationship with Procter & Gamble is impossible. It's not. I mean, you could maybe over time, 10 years, you could. It just will take way too long. So leveraging a company like Sellfire to basically deliver coupons to your customers that they care about is a way to pull them into your store and enhance the buying experience. And there's lots of companies out there that offer pieces of that solution that you can put together to deliver a better overall product and service. So, you can think about it, a lot of people talk about APIs, but leveraging what's out there today and not trying to reinvent the wheel in every particular area and just focusing on something that's really great would probably be the single biggest piece of advice I give people.
Yeah, either of you have any addition? Thanks. No? I wanted you to answer that question specifically, Chrissy.
Oh, okay. So cold calling happened in business school,
Mhm.
but we'll do it today too.
Yes.
No. Really good at the cold call. No, I'm kidding. So, one of the things that we're doing right now is focusing on how to connect the user across all of the devices. So, one of the big things on mobile is people are not signing in. You don't know who they are, they're anonymous unless they're in an app. So, how can I learn what they're doing on the mobile phone and translate that over to the desktop to truly create that omni-channel experience? So that is one piece of technology that we've built at Bloomreach, is to be able to use a number of different signals, from technology-based signals about the device, where is the user, as well as user behavior signals, what's going on, to be able to tie them from the mobile phone to the desktop, to a mobile app, to a tablet, anything digital, to create that actually unique personal experience. I think one thing that we haven't tackled really is how to connect the store yet, and really figure out how to take offline and use the digital data offline as well.
Yeah, this is less about a piece of technology, but observations that I have as I look at some of these mobile commerce companies that are emerging. One is the successful ones I see are focusing as much or more on the business model than technology. So when you think about Square, the dongles actually become trivial, although it got a lot of play when Square launched four years ago. It was really their ability to redefine the acquiring model by aggregating micro merchants that traditional acquirers didn't have the time or the business model to support. That's what's really driven Square. And then after that was Square becoming really sticky by adding value-added services around inventory control and loyalty programs, etc. So they really understood the business pain that these small and medium enterprises, these micro merchants, had to compete with the big retailers. And if you really think the business that Square's in, it's making a really small retailer look like a really big one, right? So I'd say the focus on the business model is one. I'd say the second one, and it's an observation I have because I've become addicted to Uber, and I think there's going to be some interesting business models around Uber, or the concept of Uber. If you think about what Uber is, Uber defines the fact that people love to buy and they hate to pay. Right? If you think about what Uber is, you're buying transportation services in the most feature-rich, customer-compelling, high level of service, follow-up, combining social networking, geo-services, etc. And you only pay once when you launch the app, and you never, ever, ever think about paying again. You're just buying, right? I think there's a lot of spaces besides transportation where if you can create that experience that captures the idea that people love to buy and hate to pay, that'll be compelling.
I have to totally agree on the business model piece. If you look at some of the other big players right now, or the success stories, ShopRunner. So a lot of the focus right now seems to be on shipping. So mobile is very urgent. It's either killing time, as someone on the previous panel had mentioned, or it's I need this right now. There is no other device I have on me. It's very timely and urgent. It's one of the reasons I think Guilt is doing so well, is who knows where I am when that sale comes out at 11:30. And so ShopRunner, I think, Google Express, it's all around I just purchased, how do I get it now? And it's around this business process or business model of taking a piece that others don't want to handle.
It's the Amazon,
And making it
Amazon
better.
drone, isn't it?
I think it's the drones. But I really want a drone that'll give me a flat screen TV. It's that like 8 drones that are gonna have to
It's that
land
combined with
it.
foldable screens from Samsung.
Oh, perfect, yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, I just need a mobile phone.
Okay, so we're now off topic, but eBay has a service called eBay Now, actually, it delivers in under an hour. I've not seriously considered having something delivered here tonight, but I was like, you know, this may be a little too risky, but.
Did you get delivered here though?
No, yeah, could've. The other thing, I mean, the love to buy, hate to pay thing. So one of the more compelling mobile experience I've had recently, we had a vacation at Disney World about a month ago and got to pilot the Magic Bands. Are you guys familiar with those? Right, so the wearable Magic Band device. It was really interesting. I mean, I was definitely ready to give it my wallet when I came home. I mean, you log in one time, you give them access, and everything's free from then on. It's a very good experience. Yeah.
Well, actually, John Donahoe talks about that kind of love to buy, hate to pay, yeah.
Since we're on this topic of drones, it sounds like, software is not enough. Is that right? Is there room for NFC, BLE, beacons? I can keep going, drones, that we need to integrate, especially to your earlier point of, we have not been able to figure out how to connect digital with offline. And you mentioned something about, physical store being a concern, and how does first of all, eBay has stores, physical stores?
No, we don't. But unlike Amazon, right? eBay actually doesn't stock or sell any physical product, right? So eBay's in the business of facilitating commerce between buyers and sellers, and increasingly, like very large, big name retailers who have, who most of their business is a store business. So we're somewhat channel agnostic. Like we want to facilitate commerce in the way that's most convenient to the buyers and the sellers.
Okay. So back to my question then. So, how is there room for hardware and software play, or are we thinking just software through predictive analytics and such? Who wants to take that one?
I mean, there's definitely room for both. I mean, you see Amazon making acquisitions on the operational side all the time. I mean, you got to give those guys credit. Like for the last 10 or 15 years, they've really understood what advantages physical stores have over, the e-commerce online model, and they've been experimenting just relentlessly, just A/B testing, experimenting. And a lot of their stuff doesn't work out, and they stop and try something else. So I think drones is just one more thing in a long line of experimentation. But I think there's a lot of room to speed up fulfillment, help retailers understand where their inventory is, so they can actually create these, hyper-local, personalized experiences. So there are infrastructural plays, and things on the fulfillment side. I think that actually connect with the software and the understanding of who a person is.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely room for hardware play, especially as you're looking at the stores and trying to identify a user while they're in a store. We did a number of experiments with some of our existing customers in mobile, just to see how many of their customers who walk in the door are on a mobile device, and where do they go when they're on a mobile device. And so a lot of people are familiar with showrooming. It's another thing to give a customer their own data and say, hey, X retailer, did you know of your 3 competitors? These are the people that your customers are looking at while they're in the store. And here are the products that they looked at, some of which you don't even offer. That's an inventory issue. And some of which you do, but they were lower priced. It's really hard to get a lot of that in-store data unless you're able to have a network or have some kind of hardware to tie it to.
What? Oh, sorry.
Well, I'll wade into the NFC argument because I was doing this in my mobile days, and every year it was going to be next year. So I'm just stubborn, I guess. So I actually think that regards to NFC, and we talked about it on the prep call, I think there's been a couple things that have happened that will actually see NFC not just take off in Europe and parts of Asia where it is, and markets like Australia, but actually the United States. And we'll probably end up talking less about QR codes, from my perspective, a couple years from now than we are today. And the reason we talk about QR codes in the United States, and we're the only market that talks about it, is because we've been so frustrated because we haven't been able to get NFC, right? But I see, most smartphones now having NFC capabilities from the recognized manufacturers, 9 of the top 10. Most terminals, in fact, I don't think you can buy a merchant terminal that doesn't have both chip, EMV chip, and contactless capability. The thing that kind of made me optimistic in the last couple of weeks is what Samsung did with KitKat and host card emulation, which is gonna kind of eliminate, I think, over a short period of time, the chokehold that mobile network operators have had in terms of access to that device. It's game on now in terms of wallet providers that want to get access to devices and pass payments through an NFC radio. And so I'm more optimistic about that space than I have been in several years.
Yeah, I'll just take the other. I would not invest in an NFC company. The problem is you'll get Apple, and Apple's not doing anything with NFC. They dropped it in iOS 7. It's gone. AirDrop, that's their answer. If you want something like NFC or iBeacon, which is Bluetooth, so it's useless. And the problem with NFC is if you don't support all your customers with it, it just it's hard to make it work. I think it's terrible for consumers. I wish Bill was right. I wish it was going to happen because I think it'd be great. But I think the problem, we basically have a duopoly now in terms of at least from an operating system standpoint with Apple and Google. And so long as that exists, they really don't have any interest in making it useful for everybody. And that's, I think, going to hurt consumers.
So, any more comments? I want some fights here. I think, what would an experience look like, regardless of the hardware infrastructure? I mean, we do need to know what the customers are doing in a store. What are their patterns? What brands are they spending more time with? How do we actually gather this data? Mobile is a great, I'm not putting my phone away anywhere, but what else can we do in addition to that? Do we have an answer here for what that scenario would look like to get in-store data?
Well, if people are carrying an app, you can track people in a store. I think showrooming is overblown in terms of what it means in terms of a business. I think a lot of people do it today, but I think if you fast forward 5 years from now, people are going to just be searching from their phone at home. It's certainly for buying a car, you're going to go see it somewhere. But I think the concept of going to a store and then wasting first of all, you get in a car, you drive to a shopping mall, and you waste an hour, and you go in a store to look at a product and then save $5 by ordering it online somewhere. I just don't understand that. It doesn't make any sense to me. I may be living in a bubble here in Silicon Valley, but I just don't get it. But I don't go to malls now anyway either, so I may not be the right person to ask. But I think the browsing and looking for product prior to buying, whether you call it showrooming or not, that's huge. It's probably more important. It's so hard to capture because so much of it happens in a way that you can't directly tie it to what happens on the commerce side. But if you include tablets in terms of how you think about mobile, that's where everybody learns everything today, and that's what drives buying decisions. So
you're saying that in-store is just not going to be around for like 5 years from now?
No, I think in-store is important. I just think the concept of I'm going to learn a lot about my customers in terms of what they're buying online from what they're doing in my store is not necessarily going to be as big as I think a lot of people are talking about today. That's the case today because we're in this kind of transition period.
Right, no, I think it's more the opposite, right? You're going to learn from what they're doing online when they come into the store.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm going to disagree with you on part of that, which is I think showrooming absolutely happens. So you may not get it, but like a colleague of mine, used it for the phrase, people will do unnatural acts to save $5. It doesn't even make sense. They'll waste more than $5 in gas to go save $5.
Right.
So the behavior is definitely happening. And I think there are just so many parts to the in-store experience that are broken. So I think brick and mortar is not dead. It just needs to evolve. Right? So these big boxes with low service levels where I can't get the information, I can't find a knowledgeable associate to help me, and that's done. Right? I think there's been this broader trend in retail for all time too, which is getting consumers in the store to do more for themselves. Like starting with the inventory used to be behind the counter. Now you have a shopping cart, you serve yourself. Now you check yourself out at the grocery store. So this Uber trend will continue. You've got so much more power if you have the right application in a smartphone. Meanwhile, operational costs of headcount in a store like a Walmart are the biggest hit to the bottom line. So those continue to go down, the experience gets worse. Like mobile could be the answer to that.
No, I think that's right, and beyond mobile point of sale that I described, the Square and companies like that, it's going to be part of a broader transformation of the point of sale. I mean, whether it's high-end companies like Nordstrom that's replacing all of their fixed registers with mobile registers, and interestingly, they started experimenting with iPads, and I think they're now moving to a Microsoft-based solution. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with Generation 2 of their mobile point of sale. But that's the idea of a high-end mobility to provide that customer service you know, that's very personalized and where people are in the store. To your point, checkout lines and registers disappearing. Well, you'll check yourself out with an app, right? And all the verification will happen in the background. Maybe there'll be someone who randomly checks every 100th person, you know, to put Cornell's game theory in play. But
Scanners.
yeah, exactly. But, we're going to see the transformation of the point of sale in-app purchases, right? Where, you know, I'm going to be download the app, put in a payment card, order what I always order, walk to a special place in McDonald's with my name on a bag and walk out and avoid a point of sale or that interaction altogether. That's all coming. The creation of kind of mobile and online marketplaces. The point of sale is not going to look 5 years from now what it looks like today.
So is the online model of personalization not going to translate into physical store, where if I walk in, they'll know who I am and what I was doing online before, and then cater the actual shopping, you know, layout of the showroom based on what I like in an app, tell me where to go, deliver maybe the coupon for that particular area. I mean, is that going to happen, whatever is happening online in store? Or we're just talking about, don't bother me, I know where to go because I did my research, but I still want to go to the physical store. I mean, those are two different spectrums. So are we picking one over the other, or you're just thinking there's a mixture of things happening in the future?
I mean, I think there's a mixture of things happening in the future. I don't think the customers think about a store different from www, different from MDOT. It's all Neiman Marcus. It's all Williams-Sonoma to me. Depending on what I'm buying is depending on where I'm going. You know, it's Saturday, I forgot I have a wedding. I'm certainly going to the store to go pick up that item. I can't buy it online. It won't get to me in time. I think, one, we're using more of the digital data to personalize online and create almost that store associate experience online, where when I come online, right now the personalization is, hello Christina, welcome back. Why do I go to NeimanMarcus.com and the category layout is exactly the same for me as my husband? Why would women's apparel show up first for him? And why wouldn't men's store show up first for him? So taking what a store associate would do and personalizing that experience. By the way, this is a new article we think you'd be interested in. This is a new promotion we have. And then flip side, taking the online behavior and taking it to the store associate. So Bain & Company had just come out with one of their retail holiday newsletters, and Google had been doing these, they've done a ton of mobile surveys, and customers are 40% more likely to buy from a store associate who's holding a tablet. I don't even know if that tablet has personal data about me, but it looks way more digital, and it looks like they are gonna know something about me. They care, right? I mean, that's the trend I think we're moving to, is that store associate becoming more empowered and having more data. Customers are responding to that.
Yeah, I think there's a mix of stuff too. I mean, there's so much low-hanging fruit in personalization, right? I mean, a couple of things I think we're likely to see. One is just in-store discovery. So I mean, I walk into, you know, Target or Costco, there's so much in there that's relevant to me and I might want to buy it. I'm never going to discover it. I'm in there, I'm going to go buy something, I'm going to try to walk out of there. So one, even just knowing what's relevant and where to steer me. And the other thing I think is just pricing. I think pricing is going to become increasingly personalized, right, in the form of either some sort of targeted coupon initially or some sort of opt-in loyalty program. But it doesn't make any sense actually long-term to charge me the same price as somebody else, like kind of based on our lifetime value, based on our price sensitivity. I think we're going to see more and more of that. So I think those are a couple like clear areas, just in-store discovery of things that I already want to buy, and maybe my next plan is to drive to another store to buy that thing. Well, it's right here in aisle 7. Like that's relevant, and I think the price thing is very relevant.
Yeah. Now, we talked about coupons and deals and stuff a lot, and we talked about when I'm going, I just want to go with something and buy it and leave or whatnot. Different scenarios for different people. And we had Roger from Tempo before, where we now also might know the user intent beforehand, and from calendar. We might know I'm going to go to the mall on Saturday, and you might know which mall I might be going to based on my location and what I typically go to and whatnot. What's the opportunity for combining that data with my purchasing data from Visa to, I don't even know what I've done in the past, and then getting my Groupon for that, planning, just building my actual shopping experience in advance. We've all seen that, on-the-spot coupons are not exactly the best way to go, but, in advance, what would that look like? And is that something that you all are looking into?
So we did a trial with Gap, and we're doing it with other merchants that'll hopefully be able to talk about in the next few months, where Visa, we have the purchase data, the location of the merchant in real time, because we use it for authentication and fraud detection. But we also have probably 5 to 7 years of your historical spending purchases across all merchants. And so we use that with the Gap to be able to deliver real-time coupons on mobile. And it was the Gap's own loyalty program subscribers who signed into the program. You had to use your Visa card, but in essence, we were able to go to the Gap and say, listen, someone just started a shopping experience at Starbucks, 200 meters from your store. And we know that because we have the merchant ID, and we know that they just bought a Starbucks with a Visa card. So I can deliver them, now that they've opted in, the Gap coupon, remind them of the location of the Gap, and try to prompt them to go there. But more than that, I know when they shopped in the Gap last. And so if they shop there every week, maybe it's just a reminder that you got a new set of blue jeans in. But if they haven't shopped there in 6 months, maybe it's 40% off because you need to get them back in the store, and we can tell the difference. And so I think that it's early days, but I think the combination of kind of real-time data that is location aware, but not geo. We don't have geo, we use location because we have every merchant postcode +4 in the US, plus historic data. I think there are combinations there that are interesting. But I think as interesting is what we can do behind the scenes in terms of authentication. For 50 years, we've been authenticating your piece of plastic. Does that mag stripe deliver the track 1 and 2 data, and do we recognize your signature? Well, with those electronic signature devices, someone I interviewed recently said, we're gonna take them out of our stores because it looks like you signed it with a potato. Right? They haven't hired a finger or a handwriting expert in 20 years, right? So, but if you think about it, we're gonna stop authenticating the card and authenticate your device, or you, or the chip ID on your device, plus your phone number, plus geolocation, and we can make that a pretty secure transaction, where, again, it's buying, not paying, where you don't have to do anything because it's all happening behind you. And so when people talk about big data for loyalty and personalization, absolutely right. It's also gonna transform commerce, because we're just gonna know that it's a purchase you make all the time, for about the same amount, and we're just gonna let you go.
And then the fees come down?
But it's a great question, right? So right now, I don't know if you know the payments industry, we have basically 2 kinds of payment. Our card present rate, which means we see the card and we get the track 1 and track 2 data, or a card not present rate, think e-commerce, where you're putting in your card, your expiry date, your CVV2, but we don't see the card, right? And we try to find out interesting ways to validate you on a computer. Well, that's a different rate for a merchant, because the incidence of fraud, almost all the fraud that happens right now is in card not present. Well, if we're able to authenticate individuals or devices or locations or a combination, all of a sudden those card not present, that notion of card not present means credential present, device present, token present plus chip ID present, and we can start thinking about driving out fraud, and as a result, coming up with new rates that are much closer to card present rates, because we're pretty sure it's a secure transaction. And I think that is valuable,
Yeah.
besides the stuff that you'll see, which is really important on the consumer side with some of the loyalty.
Can I ask a question? I'm not sure I understand. So the person who's buying is still buying from say, Amazon, right, with Visa. So whether he buys it from a mobile or a desktop, how do you get that information? When you say that you're going to authenticate using the chip or the user?
So we actually put flags, so I can tell right now if someone uses their phone to pay for a transaction, say NFC, or if they use their card, or if they do it online, I have flags for all of those transactions, and I can tell the difference in the network.
So can we talk a little bit more about privacy and security here then? Are there major red flags in this area that's stopping us from innovating?
I'll say there is some point at which I think you cross the line of being creepy, and users have gotten more and more used to it. But I think even you look at like cookies, and what that means, most users don't really understand what that is, but they still think it's creepy when that pair of pants follows them around on the web that they were on like last week, right? So I think that conversation earlier, you walk into a store and someone greets you and knows your name and they say, all these things about it. I'm not sure a lot of shoppers are gonna like that. But what they will like is, I have a 10-year-old daughter, she's really an American Girl doll. If anybody else has any daughters, about this American Girl phenomenon. It's amazing. And they just opened up this new store at the Stanford Mall. And if my daughter walked in and they said, oh, how's your daughter Kenya, which is my daughter's American Girl doll, that'd be a big deal. So there are some things I think that, from a privacy standpoint, that's totally legit and that would make for a great experience.
I was going to ask about predictive analytics next to personalize, but it sounds like we don't want that. But I really do mean this in a way. I have always thought about my purchase in store, especially with 3 stages. It's pre, during, post. Pre is when I'm looking for the coupon and trying to find the best pair of jeans and electronics, and then I go to the store maybe and purchase it. But then I'm lost. I mean, I don't know if stores are coming to me smart, in a smart way yet to say you bought these jeans, maybe this top will go with it now. They'll do it during maybe, and they'll remember my cookie, and if I made the purchase or not. But what can we do today to bring the customer back and enhance the mobile experience, especially what does cookies mean on the phone?
Yeah, personalization comes in buckets, right? So if I am a super loyal American Girl doll customer, I don't mind if the store associate says, oh, welcome back, Christy, right? If I go into a store I've never been before and they know my name, super creepy. But if you're bucketing your users according to kind of your super loyal customers, I think there's a ton you can do on personalization that they don't find creepy. In fact, they're wondering why you didn't remember them in the first place. In fact, I shop here every week. You should know my favorite designers. You should know that I only buy this designer when it's on sale. And I buy this designer when it's brand new because that's my favorite designer. So I think there are buckets of personalization that you can do. And I think the personalization where it gets tricky is bringing you back. So, just because I bought a pair of jeans does not mean that my next visit I need a pair of jeans. I actually might need the pair of shoes that go with it. So you actually have to start looking at buying behaviors of that user. You need to start looking at the different products and how they actually are purchased together or in follow-on. So I think that is where you start to get into simple personalization isn't enough. Big data analytics are absolutely needed.
What are some of the good companies in the space that are doing that?
Bloomreach would be one. No. Are we allowed to self-promote?
Other than yours.
We
Yeah,
are.
but
Oh,
definitely.
other than Bloomreach.
But
Oh, I'm not
definitely
aware of it. No.
Nobody.
Doing it as well?
I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of actually data analytics, just the basic stuff, I think we're at a 1 right now in the industry. And there's a lot of room to go. Just so I'll get a coupon for something online, I'll click on it, I'll go to the e-commerce site, and it won't have the item.
Yeah.
That's just basic block. Not only have they not sold me, but I'm less likely to click on it the next time.
Yeah.
That's just basic, but that'll change.
To your point, years ago when we met someone and if we knew about them a little bit before from stalking, it would have been creepy, but now it's accepted. Do you think that behavior will change? It's okay, I'm going to spend at least $1,000, $2,000, at least I've been spending in your store, you better know my name. Is that behavior gonna change?
If you're spending that kind of money in my store, I hope no. I think the behavior has changed in the sense that people are more social online. They're posting more about themselves. So I would say behavior's changed in the sense that you knowing me when I come in the store is much more acceptable than it was before. People do it for interviewing right now. Come in and know my entire profile. Talk to me like we went to school together. How do you know this? I think it's becoming way more acceptable to use person's information in shopping. But like I said, you have to have the right profiles.
Yeah.
For a brand new shopper, you do not call them by name. You implicitly personalize. You start to tell them, hey, here are some things I think you might like based on your browsing behavior. For the super loyal customer, you call them by name, you tell them that you know them.
So back to the question of what's the equivalent of cookies on mobile, since we're talking about mobile commerce?
Well, I mean, there isn't. So there's no cookies in an app. It's a huge problem, and you know, we've got a company, Admobius, that's trying to solve this by profiling kind of users and aggregating data together to basically present a profile of what that user would be. But if I'm Burberry's and I'm trying to advertise and it's inside of a Zynga game, I have no idea who's on the other side. And it's a major problem for mobile advertising today, and it's not a problem that's going to be easily solved.
Yeah, I think it's about creating really compelling use cases that get people to opt in. So I think, ultimately, privacy is dead. I think for a number of reasons, right? But one is just, it's a generational thing. People today, like younger generations, just have no expectation initially of privacy, so it's gonna kind of go away. And two, I think when you create the right compelling use case, so for your daughter, it's American Girl, for me, it's something completely different, but then, and I get the value in that, then I'm more likely to opt in. Take all my credit card data, right? Because you're adding value. Et cetera. So I think there certainly are creepy use cases, and I think a lot of those, you could look at cookies for, the pants following around the web, that's not a great use case. If I look at the number of just spam daily deals I got, that they know I'm not interested in, but the numbers work, to send it to set to, more millions of people, right? So I think, allow me to opt in for services that kind of build my trust over time by giving me a really kind of compelling, seductive use case where I see the value.
Yeah, there is a generational thing going on, and I've got 3-year-old boys, so it's Batman right now. It's not American Girl, but I've also got an 18-year-old daughter who's already turned off of Facebook, right? Because it's a bit passé for her, right? No, but what's interesting is we're going to watch, I think, in an unprecedented way, some of these behaviors, start to shift as this demographic gets more buying power, et cetera. And I honestly don't know which way it's going to break. She's 18, so you don't know which way anything's going to break. But I honestly don't know. She's more likely to have something go wrong in terms of her profile, her privacy, et cetera, than I was, because of the technology I didn't have available to expose it, and probably my predisposition not to do that. So when things break bad, what happens to this generation? So I think it's going to be fascinating to watch if things like opting in and the respect for these creepy situations, aren't if we don't have some kind of written or unwritten rules about it, I think there's a possibility that things start breaking bad for that generation too. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I would also, if you're considering personalization, go back to the use case in particular. Depending on the use case, you can personalize pretty well and not be 100% correct, right? So I don't actually need to know exactly who you are. I don't need to know your name. I don't need to know where you live. In order to say, over the last couple weeks, here's what you were interested in and here's what you have a propensity to buy. If you're talking about a clothing apparel site that only sells men's t-shirts and hats, getting it wrong, not that big of a risk. Other sites though, that sell across gender, you need to get it much closer to right. So, if you're thinking about that space, definitely think about the use cases and how right do you actually need to be.
So mobile checkout is still a mess. It's very tempting to actually browse and wanting to buy something, but barring maybe Amazon.com, it's almost impossible to actually check out. Any interesting companies doing something there, or any promises there?
Well, I think David Marcus and Braintree is the example with what's happened with PayPal and Braintree. I think Braintree is an interesting company. I think I think there's lots of work going on to take the friction out of that mobile commerce experience as e-commerce moves to mobile, right? So I think that's where a lot of the interesting stuff I see is. And again, it's to the point that was made at the beginning, it's not trying to replace the payment networks, it's really trying to innovate on the edges of them to make them more effective. That's where we're going to see it, and it's going to be the creation of in-app commerce, where again, because you register your card once, and because I know, it's your same purchase, you're in the same place, I can validate the device, I can take the chip ID, I can match it with your phone number, it'll just happen. and there won't be, address, CVV2, expiry date, that's all going away. Right, and I'll actually be more confident about that transaction in a year or two than I am even after you put all that information in terms of fraud. And so that's really where I think it's exciting, and again, I come back to that description, it's about buying what people wanna do, and payment on mobile, it's still painful. I agree with you, but I think that's where the most interesting stuff is, and part of it's the user interface, part of it's what's happening in the background with what we call authentication, and some of these authentication services, and the combination of them, it's gonna be great to shop on your mobile phone in 18 months.
What about the verifying the identity on the phone, on the mobile phone? That's a pretty common practice these days.
Well, and by the way, you'll read more about what Visa and the other brands are doing in terms of tokenization. And tokenization basically means if we know things are going to mobile, and if things are going increasingly from hardware-based to cloud-based, then we don't want to expose your Visa card in the cloud, or in the network. So we're gonna take a token of it for every transaction, and so even if it's intercepted, they can't use the token for anything, and it's only good for one transaction, so they're not ever seeing your card data. So if you think about a global standard for tokenization, where unless you're in front of someone with your card, it's a token of your card, not your card that's being used. And if you think about device ID, location, phone number, biometrics over time, right? We're gonna be able to make really, really secure transactions without the user even know what's going on, right? Because that's what we're trying to do in the network. Because my idea isn't to make you, prove yourself, challenge you with 5 pins and your zip code. I wanna get rid of that. I want you to do nothing but go, I wanna buy this, and we figure it all out and go, you've just bought it, now you can leave. And that's what consumers wanna do.
I'm visiting from Australia, so I'm keen to understand the local perspective. We do tend to adopt early in Australia, so we had our first FPOS network in the world, which was online real time. Unfortunately, we still haven't. It took a long time to take off, and it didn't happen until the major grocery chains put it on every aisle. But they started off having it in just one aisle. And it just stalled there for 10 years. It's until they changed all the infrastructure, that's when it took off. So ubiquity is very important in this, and from everything I've heard, there are lots of point solutions, to make that physical point of sale, maybe not a physical point of sale the way it was, but quite different, completely different, because you can reinvent it. But changing the infrastructure is big bucks, and the big retailers don't do that very often. And right now, I had a big retailer tell me in Australia, we don't know which way to go, because it's a big deal for us. We can only make one bet every 10 years or so, and we're still unsure. The same NFC argument, for example. Australia has 70% Apple market share, yet we have probably the most successful NFC implementation in the world. So it leaves everybody confused, the guys who are spending big money. What do you think is happening in America, not in terms of the little experiments and R&D, but in terms of a sea change for point of sale to be completely transformed? Who's driving that, and do you think it'll happen in 5 years?
Well, I'll make one quick comment, Bill's probably gonna get good thoughts here. I mean, Square, I think, is a good example of transforming what's happening at point of sale. So they're pushing from accepting, one of the major problems I see as a venture investor on the point of sale is that there's these embedded systems that people have been using forever and ever on these terminals, and you just can't get away from them. And the people who operate, the software companies behind it, some of these companies like IBM that build custom stuff, they don't want anybody else to access the data because they know how valuable it is. So it's just gonna take time, but it's companies like Square that are coming at it from a payment acceptance standpoint, not trying to reinvent payments, but payment acceptance, making it really easy, and then pushing that forward into now becoming basically a point of sale solution that will eventually, I think that's the beginning of what will change, and open that whole area up. It'll be totally different in 5 years, maybe 10.
But it is a challenge, right? If you think about Square, a really successful disruptor that didn't rely on a de jure standard, it created a standard based on the quality of its solution, its distribution, its brand, etc. And so it became a disruptor that's kind of defined a standard. Really hard to do, the challenge for any entrepreneur, right? Especially in something like payments, which means that it's kind of incumbent on the networks to get quicker and more flexible with the standards, where everything was governed by standards bodies, EMV Co, right, PCI Co, and 10 years to develop a standard. It took us 17 years to develop the ATM standard, right? We've got to now, as a body of the networks, develop these standards quickly, flexibly, and get them in as APIs or some kind of specification to the entrepreneurs, which is what we're trying to do with tokenization, which is why it wasn't Visa announcing it. We got American Express and MasterCard to announce it. There's going to be a global, de facto, it's not a standards body, it's just 3 big companies saying, we're going to create a standard that people can innovate to so we can take the friction out of payments, and we're going to do it quickly. We announced it in, I'm going to say September, we're going to launch it in April. We've got to do more of that, right? So there is something incumbent upon the big networks to create these standards, these specifications, so you guys can work more effectively, because it's hard. Scale's hard in this business.
Yeah, I think it's easy for Square to disrupt in some industries like, taxis, for example. I mean, it's such a better experience. I think it gets a lot harder when you're talking about, massive supply chain systems and you're managing inventory across a lot of areas. I'm a lot less bullish that things will fundamentally change in US retail in the next 5 years. Like, I'm bullish on things like, cloud-based systems. I mean, my perspective, having worked at retailer, you get so many, disconnected entrenched systems that are bought at different periods of time. So your ERP system, your customer management system, and your email system, your online system. So until you can tie those things together, and until the point of sale ties to all those systems, and I know that I just, decremented 1 unit of inventory in a given store, we can't really do any of the fun things you've been talking about in terms of personalization and personalized offers and, cross-channel continuity. So I don't think we're gonna see a lot of changes in 5 years because of the reasons you suggest. I think companies are gonna watch people like Walmart who are testing it, right? They're testing, mobile checkout in a number of stores, and they're gonna see how that goes. I mean, if they can't figure it out, I think other players will be very hesitant to make those kind of investments.
I mean, just to give a counterpoint from a venture investor, and I invest based on change, right? So I'm very biased, but I'd say for a lot of brick and mortar retail, what's different now is that they don't change, business just gets worse. The experience just gets worse and worse and worse. So what's different now than what was maybe 5 years ago is more and more people are buying online, and they're not buying from in those stores. And if they can't do a better job with the point of sale and the whole experience, they're gonna just continue to lose customers. So it's forcing what I see from an infrastructure standpoint inside these stores, they're all looking at completely reinventing their infrastructure, ground up. Because they can't compete with eBay, they can't compete with Amazon, and they don't know what to do. So, I mean, eBay is somewhat channel agnostic, but I think if you ask Nordstrom, they wouldn't look at it that way. They look as they're directly competing.
Thank you.
So my question would be like, obviously Rand, you mentioned in-store experience and online mobile experience and so forth. So what can, if you look at the in-store experience of Nordstrom and others, they do their darn best to hold on to the customer, personalize it, as Christina has mentioned. Then what can a brick and mortar do besides all this talk about, personalization and one channel experience and so forth, and don't fight them, join them kind of a strategy? What is it that, if you hard look at brick and mortar versus mobile commerce, what can the brick and mortar people do to, they already provide the best in-store experience. What can they do to hang on to their customer?
Well, I think that's the answer right there. That's what I would say. I think it's the only thing they can do. Because if you're just trying to buy a good, there's no reason to go to a store. There's just no, unless you enjoy crowds of people, why would you go do it? So it's the experience, that's why you go. So again, I'll point to the American Girl, right? I just think it's just an amazing phenomenon. They just do an amazing job, and that's what it's an experience. It's like going to Disneyland for my daughter. And that's what pulls her in, and consequently pulls me in.
But then, Rand, the follow-up question would be, like, if you look at the same merchandise being sold through lots of different channels, it looks like the online experience is a great leveler of things. Like, if, for example, American Girl was not making a particular type of doll, and if that same commodity was being sold, elsewhere through other channels, the online really is a great leveler, mobile commerce included. So the question is then, how does a merchandiser differentiate their good from being so commoditized that it's only a price game at the end of the day?
Well, that's what I mean. I think it's the experience in the store. So if you just want to buy the doll.
No, I meant on the mobile side, on the mobile commerce side. How can a merchandiser differentiate themselves so that their goods sell better than the next guy?
Well, I think on the mobile side, it's all about getting to the right person. So I'll give you a very personal experience. So I surf a lot. And as people figure that out, as retailers figure that out, they laser target me. And it's pretty amazing how effective it is. But it's taken a long time for them to sort of figure that out. But once they get a hold of me and they know who I am and they know that I've bought, then I mean, from a mobile commerce standpoint, that's the only way they're gonna get to me. Because it's such a niche, little, tiny market. First of all, I'm not gonna go to a store. Second of all, they just couldn't have enough that I could even go there, right? Because I'm such a tiny market. But all of a sudden, they could reach me on a mobile device. And that's, I think, how you make it work on mobile.
But provided you've been a customer and there's a history to it, otherwise there's a whole general population which is there is no history to your buying behavior, or even in fact, mobile, commerce platforms may not capture the buying behavior of all the customers adequately, or sometimes the customer wants to be hidden purposely. So how are you going to discover the customer so that, or as he mentioned about opt-in, then you are just targeting to the general mass population, like.
Well, now now it's marketing. Now you're marketing about how you acquire customers. And we can talk about that all night.
Okay.
But you can buy lists, right? You can start on the web and then move to the mobile device. There's lots of ways to do that. But it takes volume, and it takes time.
But it comes back to one of the basic points, regardless of the channel, let's say it is the mobile channel, it starts with a really compelling UI. Because even if you have marketing lists and you can rely on viral or social media, it's not gonna last very long, it's not sustainable. If that mobile shopping experience, that UI, the brick and mortar UI, the customer experience, and they have more control and more power than they've ever had. If we keep on saying, we've been saying since the history of retail, the customer is king, well, it's finally true. Right, because we lied about it, because merchants had most of the power 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. Not anymore. The customer is king. And so that user experience in whatever channel you're trying to develop, that's where it starts.
I have one perspective on that I think that all this behavioral targeting and data analysis and doing on the back end may be a relic of how cookies were used to track user behavior on the web. With the phone, you have a more obvious way of just telling it like what do I want instead of trying to figure it out. And that basic UX is broken. Like we are not used to talking to a computer, but we use the phone for talking. So that user experience can be fixed. Like most of the time, I'm going to a store to do research on a few items, and then I decide whether it makes sense, what the reviews are like, and I end up having to punch in some description of what I want to buy on Amazon.com, and then get frustrated looking for the UI. Whereas that whole thing could be just a voice interface, and you should be able to say what you want, and it should respond back to you. So, any thoughts on that? That's, are there fundamental differences that mobile could change the way we behave and we interact with computers in the next few years? More than just, more targeting and more attributes of, what you can get of user from the device.
Samsung does this.
Yeah, track your eyeballs. Yeah, there's a lot more we can do. I mean, that's an answer. But I don't know if you all have anything more to add.
I mean, people have tried declarative thing, like I'm gonna declare that,
Yeah.
the store where, you spend $1,000. And you say,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you answer, if you come into my store, I'm gonna know who you are. There's been companies that have tried to say, hey, look, I'm gonna declare that I wanna spend $1,000, me as a consumer, I'm gonna say I'm gonna spend $1,000 in a store, who wants my business?
Yeah.
And that hasn't taken off yet, but
Yeah.
it could, but it could. To your point, right, a little bit about how do you, the consumer, how do you,
Yeah,
Yeah, state your preferences and
yeah.
yeah.
the system,
It's kind of the opt-in point,
Yeah.
And we'll probably see more of that.
Yeah.
It's just early.
There are companies that allow you to say what are your general preferences, and then you want ads catered to you that way, coupons and ads catered to you that way. But I mean, I haven't seen it mainstream just yet.
I mean, I would take both approaches. I mean, if I'm a loyal customer, there's no reason I should have to tell you anything about myself. You should already know it. But give me some control. Feed back to me instead of you filling out a standard form of your preferences. Let me tell you what I think your preferences are, and you can control it. You can tell me, no, you got this wrong, and yeah, you got this right. So I think users are always going to want some element of control, but that control should be customized, and I should use what I know to make the customer experience that much better. Don't give me an A to Z list of the 500 designers you sell. Personalize that to me, and then let me control it.
Yeah, thank you guys. Just to wrap this up, we're running out of time, but one last question for all of you. what are some of the big problems that you're working on right now? And Ryan, for you, what are some of the areas of investments that you are seeking companies in? And how can startups help you solve those problems? Or, what startup can come talk to you after this session today? Just to make it quick, and then want to wrap this up right after that.
So the two big areas I'd probably say are definitely in store, so offline data and analytics.
Yeah, I'd say simpler analytics, that's an easy one. It's really complicated. Big data, everybody uses the word, but actually translating that into, it's not just a Hadoop cluster, it's actually something that's meaningful. I'd say that's a big area right now and interesting.
I think for us, this area I spoke about earlier, it's authentication and what we can do to get more confident about what people are doing on the network.
Yes, as I've spoken to some big themes throughout the conversation, I'll go for a really narrow use case. Right? We would like to convert every eBay buyer into a seller. I've got 1,000 things in my garage I'd love to sell. Like, it should be as easy as me walking around my garage, taking a picture, and eBay just gives me the guidance, knows that the product is listed. If you've got a company that can help me do all the steps this could take from picture to listing, then we should talk.
There you go, guys. Well, thank you so much. This was so insightful, and we're running out of time, but I feel like we just got started. So definitely maybe we should do a follow-on chat here. Thanks again.
Da